So we are here today on day 8 of Ellen's keynote's study streak, and yesterday we discussed about silicia. Today we'll discuss two remedies which are very close to silica, and if you have Ellen's keynotes it will make a good impact. If not, then you will need to memorize what I say and then read it in Ellen's keynotes, or watch this again or hear this again. So the first remedy that we'll discuss is Hepar Sulph. So hello, Dr. Singh. Glad to see you. And then we'll proceed with the remedy. So the remedy which we'll discuss today is Hepar Sulph. It is mentioned that it is for torpid lymphatic constitutions, persons with light hair and complexion, slow to act, muscles soft and flabby. So you can see that it's almost showing the traits of calcareous carb that we saw few days ago. So if you read the remedies in connection, this will strike you more clearly and you will be able to visibly see where you need to prescribe calcarea, where you need to prescribe Hepar Sulph. The remedy is oversensitive physically and mentally. The slightest cause irritates him. Quick, hasty speech and hasty drinking. So you see these people who are very quick to act, very fast, very much rapidity in all their actions. Those patients require Hepar Sulph. The other remedy also over here is Merc but it has its own sphere of action and own indications. But what is more important than quick to act, or equally important I would say, is oversensitive physically and mentally. So you see these patients who are easily affected by colds, easily affected by change of weather, easily affected by whatever things are happening around them. Those are the patients that require Hepar Sulph. They will tell you that they are very sensitive or they get affected very easily by least things that happen around them. Next we see is mentioned that patient is peevish, angry at least trifle, hypochondriacal, unreasonably anxious. So someone who is very angry on little things, who is also feeling that he has this problem, that problem, although the problem may not exist so grave as he thinks, but those are the hypochondriac patients. Further we see the mention that slightest injury suppurates or causes suppuration, just like graphitis and Merck. Diseases where the system has been injured by the abuse of mercury. So I told you that this remedy or the symptom, earlier symptom was almost close to Merck. That is what we have over here. That it's a remedy which can be given in patients who are abused by mercurious drugs, mercurious applications. So I think there is someone on YouTube and we would like to say hola as well. I hope you are enjoying Alan's keynotes, and let us continue the journey further. In diseases where suppuration seems inevitable, Hepar may open the abscess and hasten the cure. So if you feel that in a case of abscess, the abscess needs to be drained out, you can give Hepar Sulph and you will find good relief. Extremely sensitive to cold air, imagines he can feel the air if a door is opened in the next room, must be wrapped up to the face even in hot weather, just like Sorinum. Cannot bear to be uncovered. So the patient is so sensitive that least changes not in his room but in the next room also affect them so badly, and they cannot bear to be uncovered. They always want to be covered. So you see these geriatric patients who are mostly requiring covers all the time. They may be one of them who require Hepar Sulph. So good evening, Dr. Chandrasekhar Nagalikar, and glad to see you. You are part of all the endeavors that we are undertaking. The other remedy that we have in comparison to this symptom which is mentioned for cannot bear to be uncovered is Nux vomica, which is also very close. Now there is an opposite spectrum of symptom. We always have two ends of a symptom. And the other symptom is that it cannot bear to be covered. This is there in camphora and Sulph. Further, what is mentioned for Hepar Sulph is that he takes cold from slightest exposure to fresh air, just like tuberculinum. So, Dr. Akhtar, glad to see you. Good evening, and we'll proceed with the further symptom. The patient of Hepar Sulph sweats profusely day and night without relief. Perspiration is sour, offensive, easily on every mental or physical exertion. Sorinum and sepia are the other two remedies mentioned. So we saw this offensiveness and also excessive sweating in silica. We also saw it in sanicula, and we also saw it in calcarea carb. Now you know the difference and you can analyze and you can prescribe. If you need to confirm, just go back to these basic books and you will be able to confirm and prescribe the medicine. Eyeballs are sore to touch, pain as if they would be pulled back into the head. Oleander and Paris are the next two remedies mentioned. So for cough, what is mentioned in Hepar by Ellen? When any part of the body is uncovered, just like rust talks. There is a very beautiful rubric in Kent's repertory, and if you memorize the cough chapter, if you can memorize, okay, it's possible. It's nothing is impossible. Okay, so if you memorize and if you see this beautiful rubric which says that least cold or exposure of any part of the body, least draft of air aggravates. The only remedies mentioned there are Baraitacab, Hepar, Rustox, and there is one more remedy. Okay, so these are the 3-4 remedies which are very sensitive, and here you can see cough when any part of the body is uncovered or exposed, croupy cough, choking, strangling from exposure to dry west wind and the land wind, just like aconite. Asthma, which is breathing anxious, wheezing, rattling, short deep breathing threatens suffocation, must bend the head backwards and sit up after suppressed eruption. Asthma after suppressed eruption, this we also see in Sorinum. So many a times you will have a patient of respiratory trouble, you will have a patient of gastric trouble. Ask them if in the past they suffered with skin diseases. If they reply in the affirmative, think about these remedies, Sorinum, think about sulfur, think about natrum sulph, think about Hepar sulph, and many more of these set of remedies. There is mention of croup in Hepar sulph by Ellen. After exposure to dry cold wind, aconite is another remedy. Deep, rough, barking cough with hoarseness and rattling of the mucus, aggravated by cold air, cold drinks before midnight towards morning. So there will be when they go to sleep or just before they go to sleep. If we need to ask the time, and we need to know what is their what are they doing at that time. So many times patients will tell that if they go to bed early, they get the problem after they sleep, after 1 hour after they sleep. Sometimes we will be able to think and give them calcarea carb without any action. But if we see that if the time modality is more sure, then Hepar sulph will act before midnight. If they go to sleep by 10, they get the cough or cough episode at 11:30 or 12, we can think of Hepar sulph. And also towards morning, which is like 4 or 5 am. Sensation of splinter, fish bone or plug in the throat, argentum nitricum and nitric acid are the other remedies. Quinsy when suppuration threatens, chronic hypertrophy with hardness of hearing, just like Baraitacab, Lyco, Plumbum and Sorinum. So if you are with me on the same page reading Allen's keynotes, Hepar sulph, you will be able to register these symptoms more clearly and more in a beautiful way. There will be scores of patients in your clinic who will have this vague sensation of stuck up, something is sticking in the throat. Think of Hepar sulph as one of the remedies. Other remedies being Calibitromicum or Rustox. Going further, we have in gastrointestinal system Diarrhea of children with sour smell, just like calcarea carb, mac carb, and child also and the stool also will have a sour smell, which is there in rheum. Clay colored stool like calcarea carb and podophyllum, so you can say that it's bordering towards symptoms of jaundice, but it's not like that. Urine is the flow is impeded, voided slowly without force and drops vertically. Is obliged to wait a while before it passes, bladder is weak and unable to finish, seems as if some urine always remains. This is also there in alumina and silica. So in Hepar Sulph you see that there is, on one hand there is rapidity, there is quick movements, there is fast activities, and on the other hand you see that on the physical system some parts slow down. That is a compensation which the body faces, and that is why over here we have the urine which is flowing slowly without force, it drops vertically, and urine always remains. That is also there in other psychotic remedies. The skin is very sensitive to touch, cannot bear even slightest clothes to touch the affected parts. This is also there in China, I would say. But in China they can tolerate hard pressure, they feel better by hard pressure, but over here they will avoid least touch, just like arnica we have. But the arnica may be more like bony pains. In Hepar Sulph it is more of skin pains. This is also there in lachesis, which is another remedy mentioned. Skin affections, extremely sensitive to touch, the pain often causes fainting. Now imagine a person who has such a severe problem and a least touch on the skin or least touch on any body part and causes fainting. It is so sensitive. So you can, when you read Allen's keynote, there are some symptoms which you can pick up from the particulars and take it to the general level and maybe understand it in a more better way from the general point of view as well. Ulcers, herpes surrounded by little pimples or pustules and spread by coalescing. So what does this mean? That whenever there is any eruption in one part of the body, a small eruption comes just next to it, and then they spread by the first one collapsing first, then the second, then the third, and the whole series of eruptions affect the skin over there. So they spread by coalescing or by collapsing on each other. Middle of the lower lip tract, just like ammonium carb and natrum mure. And if there are cracks in commissures, the remedy is conturongo. Coming to an end in Hepar Sulph for modalities, Allen mentions that there is aggravation by lying on painful side, just like kali carb and iodine. Aggravation from cold air, from uncovering, from eating or drinking cold things, touching affected parts, and abuse of mercury. And there is amelioration from warmth in general. Arsenic is another remedy. Wrapping up warmly is also an ameliorating factor, especially the head, which is also there in solanum and silica. And amelioration in damp, wet weather. This is also same to causticum and nux, and it is reverse of natrum sulph. So there can be an amelioration, strong amelioration, or there can be a strong aggravation. It can be in opposite modality, or it also means that they are affected with least cold air or cold draft of airs. So we come to an end where there are relations that are mentioned. It is complementary to calendula in injuries to soft parts, Hepar antidotes bad effects of mercury and other metals, iodine, iodide of potash, cod liver oil, and renders the patients less susceptible to atmospheric changes and cold air. So least change of weather which the country must be experiencing right now, or is experiencing right now in your area, you can think of Hepar Sulph as one of the top remedies. Compare Hepar Sulph with the psoric affections of sulfur are dry and itching, better by scratching and not sensitive to touch, whereas in Hepar Sulph the skin is unhealthy, suppurating, moist and extremely sensitive to touch. So sensitivity and aggravation from touch are two factors which you need to keep in mind. If you note them down in your brain when the patient appears in front of you and elaborates those complaints, think about Hepar Sulph as one of the remedies. The next remedy which we will discuss, because it's in line with what the remedies we are discussing in this week, in the last week, and the remedy that is Thuja. So let's open Thuja from Allen's keynotes, and it's a big remedy, but we'll finish it. Thuja bears the same relation to psychosis of Hahnemann, fig warts, condylomata, and wart-like excrescences upon mucous and cutaneous surfaces that sulfur does to sora and mercury, or mercury to syphilis. So you know that it's a psychotic remedy, and it has in an era when there was lot of condylomata, warts, and wart-like eruptions on the body of different people. Thuja was discovered, and it helped a lot, helped save patients a lot by going under the scalpel. So we see that there is causative factor, bad effects from vaccination, antimatat and silica, and from suppressed or maltreated gonorrhea, just like medorinum. Adapted to hydrogenoid constitution of Gravogel, which is related to psychosis as effect is to cause. It means that if there is a cause which is found in the psychotic origin, we can think of Thuja as one of the remedies. It acts well in lymphatic temperament, in very fleshy persons, dark complexion, black hair, and unhealthy skin. So you have the patients who are not having a kind of a good skin, they have dry skin, they are not keeping the skin well, or it just loses some moisture. That is where you can think of Thuja is the remedy. Fixed ideas, as if strange person were at his side, as if a soul and body were separated, as if living animal were in the abdomen, of being under the influence of superior power. Insane women who will not be touched or approached. So these patients have this vague feeling that we have something going inside our body, we have some alive object or something going on in the body, in the mind, in the legs, in different parts of the body, soul is separated. All these eccentric symptoms that are mentioned by patients, that can be Thuja, or you can think of any other remedy which comes up based upon their totality, but don't miss to give them Thuja as an intercurrent. This is going to clear many of their thoughts that are stuck up. So you see that there is one word which is mentioned, fixed idea. If I were to explain Thuja, it would just be on these two words, fixed ideas, and we can speak about it for an entire hour or two. So I see some question on Instagram, and can you share any case of pemphigus vulgaris? Yes, of course. Stay tuned, we will definitely share what kind of symptoms we can see in hydrogenoid constitution. They will be affected by damp weather, they will be affected by moisture, they will be affected by eating and drinking vegetables which are grown in water. Those things that have more watery content, that will affect their body. Let's go further about Thuja. Flesh feels beaten, as if beaten from the bones, just like phytolacca. If it is a scrapey feeling, someone has scraped, then the remedy is rust tox. It's very rare explanation any patient may give, but if you get it, you have a jackpot. Chill beginning in the thighs, this is mentioned further. So it means that it's a very predominant symptom. And sweat only on uncovered parts or all over except the head. This is reverse of silica. Silica will have only on the head and nowhere else. Here it has all over except the head. And there is one beautiful symptom, and if you are a keen observer or you are able to pick it up from the relatives, you will get this very clearly, which goes something like, when he sleeps he sweats and he stops sweating when he wakes. This is opposite of Sambucus. Sambucus has perspiration throughout the daytime when he is awake, but when he goes to lie down, there is dry heat. And over here, also the perspiration, you can see that there is sour smelling, fetid at night. Perspiration smells like honey on the genitals. When walking, the limbs feel as if made of wood. Sensation as if body, especially the limbs, were made of glass and would break easily. If you were to understand the state or the feeling of Thuja, it would be based upon this entire one symptom, one line symptom which is mentioned. Sensation as if body, especially the limbs, were made of glass and would break easily. Suppressed gonorrhea causing articular rheumatism, prostatitis, psychosis, impotence, condylomata, and many constitutional troubles. So you have these patients who keep getting these recurring urinary tract infections. Think of Thuja in very high potency. I would say you can go to 10 m and 50 m, give frequent repetition for 2-3 days, and then give the indicated medicine if you see that there is a totality which needs another prescription. Vertigo when closing the eyes, like lachesis and theridion. Headache as if nail had been driven into parietal bone, cophia and ignatia, or as if a convex button were pressed on the part. Aggravated from sexual excesses, overeating from tea. Selenium is one of the other remedies mentioned. Chronic or psychotic or syphilitic in origin. And further, what Ellen mentions for Thuja is that there is white scaly dandruff, hair dry and falling out. We saw that there was mention of dandruff also in Sanicula. So you can see that these are psychotic traits which are explained, or you can say it is soro-psychotic rather than just psychotic. And if they are present, think about Thuja or the other remedy is Sanicula. There are many other remedies, but these are the top remedies, you can say. There is a complaint which is very important, and it is especially seen in children, which is ophthalmia neonatorum in the eyes, psychotic or syphilitic, large granulations like warts or blisters, better by warmth and covering. If uncovered, feels as if cold stream of air were blowing through them. It is self-explanatory. Eyes are agglutinated at night and there are dry scaly on the edges. Styes and tarsal tumors, chalaziate, thick hard knots like small condylomata. And after staphysagria partially ameliorates, you can think of Thuja, which can be indicated or which will complete the cure. Just like sulfur and sorinum cure the psoric patients, Thuja will help cure these psychotic traits. There will be chronic otitis in ear, patients who keep getting recurring ear infections, and the discharges will be purulent or bordering towards pus, putrid meat granulations, condylomata, polypi, pale red, cellular bleeding easily. There is chronic catarrh after exanthemata, thick green mucus, blood and pus, just like pulsatilla. Tooth decay at the roots and the crown remains sound. So you have these patients who have the teeth which is decayed on their root levels, but the crown is sound. So there is a kind of a burrowing which has happened, but the crown is very sound. Those cases will be more indicative of Thuja. If it is only the edges over here and the teeth is on the edges is eroded, but the center remains as it is, Mesothelium staphysagria should be thought. Mesothelium also has tooth which decays at the root and the crown remains sound. If they turn yellow or crumble, think of syphilinum. It also, yellowishness can depend on what the mother used to take during her pregnancy. Further, what Alan mentions for Thuja is that there is ranula, or it is a collection of some pus or fluid or cyst-like appearance below the tongue in the lower part of the mouth. There is bluish or varicose veins on the tongue or in the mouth, just like ambragresia. Toothache from tea drinking. On blowing the nose, a pressing sensation remains in the hollow of the tooth or on the side of it. And this is a symptom mentioned by Bonninghausen. It is also seen in another remedy, which is Culex. Going further, we come to the main part of Thuja. The action is on the gastrointestinal system. So, constipation, violent pains in the rectum, compel cessation of effort. There is so bad pain that they are, even though they are constipated, they can press and bring out the stools. They will not do so because the pain is unbearable and it kind of avoids the entire effort. Its stool recedes and partially expels, just like sanicula and silica, the two remedies that we read in the last 2-3 days. Piles are swollen and pain is worse more when they are sitting in their sitting position. Now there is diarrhea, which is especially there in the early morning, and it is expelled forcibly with much flatus, just like aloes, and as if a water is from the bunghole. Now as a student, we always wonder what a bunghole is. If you go and study, you will see that bunghole is nothing but a container which is watertight with a corkscrew. If you open the screw, the water or the contents surge out from that part. So the diarrhea of Thuja is almost like that, and it is especially more after breakfast. So you have this as a confirmatory physical general symptom, and if in a case you are confused with many remedies, you can ask them if they want to pass the stools after they have any meals or especially after breakfast. Think of Thuja as a medicine. It can also be aggravated, the stools can also be aggravated after coffee, fat food, vaccination, and onions. The anus is fissured, painful to touch, surrounded by flat warts or moist mucus condylomata. And in urinary symptom, again there is a very interesting symptom which many patients will describe: sensation after urination as if urine trickled in the urethra, severe cutting at the close of urination. We see also in sarsaparilla. Many of these renal calculi patients will complain of this sensation that urine is remained or they cannot bring out. It is still present, the few droplets. Think of Thuja as a remedy, because these are the droplets which will ultimately may cause retention and develop their urinary infections. In the female reproductive system, we have the mention that as if there is an animal crying in the abdomen, motion as if something alive protrudes here and there like an arm of fetus. So there is a feeling that there is some fetus inside, some alive object or person is there inside. This is a very fixed idea, and it is almost bordering towards giving psychotic trait examples, and you can think of the medicine Thuja. Other remedies being crocus, nux mostata, and sulphur. Distressing and burning pain in the left ovarian region when walking or riding, must sit or lie down. Crocus and ustilago are the other two remedies, worst at each menstrual nisus. There is extreme sensitiveness of the vagina which prevents coition, similar to platina. If it happens by dryness, it's a very subjective symptom again. You can think of remedies lyco, lycinum, and natramide. Going further, and last but not the least, the skin looks dirty brown or brownish white here and there. Warts are large, seedy, pedunculated, just like Staphylos aureus. Eruptions only on covered parts and burn after scratching. So you see the amelioration after scratching, which is sulphur. If they burn after scratching, it is Thuja. Nails deformed and brittle. We also saw this in Antim crude, and we see here as well. Aggravation of Thuja is mostly at night, from heat of the bed 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. and from cold damp air and narcotics. You see the relations that are mentioned are very much, it is very much similar to or complementary to medorinum, sabina and silica. We already studied silica for that matter. You can compare Thuja with cannabis sativa, cantharis, copaiba and staphylos aureus. And it is mentioned that cinnabaris is preferable for warts on prefuse. This was a time when these problems were at its peak, but now they are not. So maybe this can just be a viva symptom and not a clinically observable symptom. Thuja follows well after medorinum, merksol and nitric acid. So we come to an end of today's session, and I hope it is helping you all study the remedies as we go along. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask about case taking, rubrics, or potencies or prescription, and we call it a day and move further. Okay, so let's make a move.